what I'm going to do is record on this computer. Oh, let's back up one more. All right. So I'm going to make a directory called, like, what should I say, Django admin templates, just because that's what's going to be kind of covered today. I'm going to cd into Django admin templates. All right. So we're going to be creating a brand new Django project. So, let me move some stuff around. So what's the first thing we need to do?
Virtual environment.
Yep. So python-make venv. And let's source into that virtual environment. So activating it, bin activate. There we go. We're activated into it. We need to pip install. Let's install Django. Let's use a Postgres database. So scicab G2 or psychopg2. I don't think I'll need Django extensions at the moment, but if I end up needing it, I'll just install it if I need it. So we need to install Django, and because I'm interacting with a Postgres database, I'm going to have to install scicab G2 or psychopg2. And what did I just do? Hopefully that works. All right. So, does anybody, what questions you have about that process so far? All right. So I'm going to list everything out. I'm going to open up. All right. So I'm in this directory in the Explorer. I don't want to be. I want to be in the Django admin. So I'm going to open up this into a new VS Code window. I'm probably going to have to reactivate my virtual environment because I essentially reloaded. Yep. So I'm going to reactivate my virtual environment. I'm going to pip list just to see what was installed. So we have Django and scicab G2. Great. All right. So I'm going to create an application or CRUD app that it's like a blog that has posts on it. Pretty simple, but I'm going to add some styling to it. I'm going to extend some templates. So I'm going to extend our HTML templates. I'm going to use actually Bootstrap. If you remember Bootstrap from the HTML and CSS portion of the curriculum, I'm going to add Bootstrap to our templates to kind of pretty it up. But yeah. All right. So I'm in my virtual environment. I've installed Django, scicab G2. Next, I'm going to actually go ahead and create my Django project called Django admin start project. We should call it my site. It's going to be a blog site. So there we go. I made a mistake. I don't want this nested. So like right here, I'm at the top level. I have to go down to my site to get to the manage PY. So I'm just going to delete that and start over and run the same command, but space period. And that's going to install everything at the root level. So I got my Django project right. So right here. All right. So I created my Django project. Now I need to create my Django app. So I'm going to use Python manage.py start app. I'm just going to call it blog because it's going to be a blog. And there we go. We've got our blog Django app. So next, so created my Django project, created my Django app. Now I need to register my Django app to my Django project. So inside of my site, which is my Django project, I'm going to import my blog Django app. I'm going to add a comma there. And then down into at the, where'd it go? Databases. I'm going to use a Postgres database. But I haven't actually created my Postgres database. So let's go ahead and do that now. What should I call my Postgres database? Like blog, I guess. Create DB blog. All right. PSQL blog. All right, cool. Everything's looking good. So I'm going to be using a Postgres database, and I just need to use blog. I know I've seen people use like PG2 doing that stuff. I've never seen that before. If that works for you, feel free to do that. But you should only need to have Postgres QL right here in the database engine, and then just literally the name of that blog. If you happen to customize your Postgres of putting on different ports on your local machine, you might have to explicitly say what port it's on, but 99% of the time, this is all you'll need. All right. Any questions on creating our Django app, adding that app to my Django project, and linking my Postgres database to my Django project? All right. Good to go. So this should all be pretty familiar with y'all right now. Again, we're just going to repeating the same process over and over. So now in my Django app called blog, I'm going to go ahead and create a model or a database model or table called post. And I'm going to just make sure yep. So class post is going to inherit from the models model class, the Django models model class. And I'm going to have an author equals models foreign key. So post is going to have a user associated with it. But we're not going to create a separate users model because we're going to use the built-in Django user model because Django comes with a built-in user model. So usually foreign key, we'd have put like a model here, like a user model that author is associated with, but we're going to be using the built-in user model. So we can access the settings.auth settings auth user model on delete equals models cascade. And in here, I need to import settings. So from Django configuration or config, import settings. So the auth user model is the built-in user model for Django. And then I'm going to import the title, which is just going to be a char field. Max length, say 255. Text is not going to be a char field, but it's going to be a text field. I'm not going to have a max length. And publish date equals models dot date time field. I'm going to say blank equals true and null equals true. So I'm able to have those be blank. And then I'm going to just def under string self return self dot title. All right. So that's my only user model, or that's my only model for this CRUD app. All right. Any questions on this so far? And we'll be using this auth user model here in a second.
Maybe this isn't necessary since you're using the settings auth user model, but normally when you do a foreign key like that, don't you do the related to give it a name?
Yeah,
so
you could do a related name equals posts like that as well. Let's do that. It should work the same. All right. And just so in the future, when you build out user models, you can always use the auth user model, or you can create your own user model like class user and create your own user model if you want. You can also extend the built-in user model by like have the user model, but extend adding additional columns to it as well. So you can extend the built-in user model. So just keep that in mind. All right. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and make migrations. So Python manage type py make migrations. So I created that create model post. Next, let's go ahead and let's just run this. Run server. And all right, so we've got a bunch of things that haven't been migrated yet or applied yet. What the hell is this? Let's bring this over here. So if I had to go to localhost, is it 8,000? There we go. So let's go ahead and build out the admin. So if I wanted to actually use this admin panel, the first thing I'm going to have to do is actually create a username for this. And there isn't like a register new user. So we're going to have to do all that from the terminal. Come on, kill it. Oh, geez. Am I still in everything? Okay. So from Saturday, how do we go ahead and create a user, a Django admin user? Does anybody remember the keyword?
Super user.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Super user.
Create super user?
Something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's Python manage.py create super user. So let's go ahead and let's see if this works. Uh-oh. So it says is active auth user date joined from user. So why isn't this working? What didn't I do yet?
You gotta go to the admin file in my site and add the thing.
So I already added everything to the my site. But what's the only thing I did with the my with the
You
like the
didn't- You didn't do the full migration, did you?
correct. So I
You didn't
actually
migrate.
didn't. Yep. So I did make migrations, which created that migration script right here. So I created that migration script that created the model post. Now I just need to apply the model. So Python manage.py migrate. I can migrate everything. I can just migrate the blog migrations, but let's go ahead and migrate everything. So here's my blog that ran that I created, and here are all the other built-in migration scripts that come built in with Django. So I already applied to all those. And now let's go ahead and create a super user. So Python manage.py create super user. All right, there we go. It gives us a username. Leave blank to use TA preet. So that's the name of my Mac computer. I can just leave it blank. Email address, tom@email.com. Password 123. Password again, 123. It gives us a warning saying, hey, this password is too short. It must contain at least 8 characters. This password is too common. This password is entirely numeric. So these requirements for this password actually come from the settings.py file. If you look down here in the auth password validators, these are all the things that are validating a password. So user attribute similar validator, minimum length validator, common password validator, numeric validator. So those are all where this is coming from. If I were to remove this from the settings, it wouldn't check those. But I can always bypass that because I'm the super user and I'm just going to create the user anyway. So super user created. What questions do you have about creating a super user? All right. So let's go ahead and run that server again. And I'm going to refresh to the admin panel. So if I come down here in the Django project URLs, going /admin, admin site URLs. It has a bunch of built-in URLs. Here's one of them, the login. And I'm going to type in my username, TA-preet, and my password, and click login. Now you can see I've got my users. We also have groups because this is an admin. You can create groups of users based off of different capabilities, admin settings. But here you can see my username, Tom at email.com. Active, it's a staff user. I'm a super user status. I don't have any groups. These are all the different user permissions. I really never mess with this at all. But one thing I am missing, so if I go to home, I'm not seeing my posts from right here. So in order to have my posts show up in my admin panel, I need to register them to the admin site. So under this admin.py file, I'm going to have to add this here. So from Django contrib admin, register your models here. So here I can just say admin.site register my post model. And now I'm going to have to import my post model. Like so. If I had multiple models, this register can take in a list of models. So for example, if I had like post, comments, I don't know, something else like likes, I can say like my models equals post, comment. Oh, what the hell just happened? I can create like a list of models and just register all of the models into this register. Or I could have just done that. So if you need to register multiple models, this takes in a list as well. But we're only registering one, just the post. And there we go. Let's go ahead. Everything's working. So now if I refresh the server, my app showed up, my blog app, and the models that belong to that app, that blog app. Any questions on registering your models to your admin panel? Nope. All right. So let's create a couple of posts first. So here it already has like all the fields. So we have author, title, text, publish date. So here I've got all the users in my database. So I only have one super user. So I'm going to say TA-preet did that. This is my first post. This is just a bunch of stuff. Just gonna copy and paste some stuff. I'll say today, right now. So date and time, April 4th at 22:59. I can just save. I don't want to, I'll just add one for right now. All right. So this gives us a little dashboard where we can create data or fake data if we need to. It's a quick way to do it. If we don't have, if we want to create fixtures or do it manually, we can just use the admin panel. All right. Questions about creating super user and interacting with the admin panel? All right. So now we're actually going to go through and create the CRUDing capabilities of this app. So in my Django project URLs, I'm going to import include. And here, I'm going to go to posts. And then I'm going to include or tell it to go look at the blog.urls file. So my Django project, I'm going to go to /posts, and that's going to point me to the blog URLs. So now in my blog app, I'm going to create the urls.py file. I usually just copy this whole thing over. Like so. And I don't use that. I import my views, import everything from views, or I would say from import my views. And then if I go to just post / whatever, I want to go to my views.index method, which I haven't created yet, name index, or I'm just going to call it post list because it's going to list all the posts. All right, so I created my route. Now I'm going to go over to my view, my views. So right there. Then in my views, I'm going to go ahead and I'll import my models. So from models, import post. And then I'm going to def post _ list, takes in the request. I can grab all the posts equals post.objects dot. I can do all, but I want to order by publish date. So it's going to put them in the order of the publish date. So it's just, I could have easily just grabbed them all either as well. So I can say data equals all posts equals posts, or I guess, yeah, posts. And now I can return the render method that renders the request. The blog / post list.html, and then the data object. All right. So next I need, what's the last step I need to do to complete the cycle? Let me call somebody.
Create a template.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. So I'll need to create a template. So for templates, I'm going to go ahead and create a templates directory. Inside of my templates directory, I'm going to create another child directory called blog, which is the same as my app. Then inside of my blog directory, I'm going to create a post list.html file. And in here, I'll go ahead and create my HTML template. So I can just do HTML, grab some boilerplate, delete some, get rid of all that stuff. Then in here, I can go ahead and execute, like add stuff from my views. So H1, I'm going to make an href. I'm going to use a named route. So URLs or URL, it's going to go to the post list named route. And I'm going to just say my blog. So it's going to give me a list that's going to link me to this post list URL. And the next, I'm going to loop through all the posts. So for post in all posts, just to make sure that's what it's called, all posts. And for create a div. Let's create an H2 tag, with an href, with an a tag that goes to post.title. And here href will just go to nowhere initially because I haven't created that link yet. And I don't want this to break. Published. Post.published date and P. I'll do post.text / line breaks BR. So that actually provides a line break after the after that. So what does it say? No module name blog.
I think it was when you were doing your include in your my site URLs. You called it post instead of blog. No, in the site URLs, not the.
Oh.
Not the
It should be blog URL.
no, in the first part, the path, you have it to post. Shouldn't that be blog too?
Where am I looking at?
In your
Here?
second path, yeah. But in the path
On
to
that
that,
line, yeah.
This part?
yeah, I
No.
thought that should be the going
No.
to your blog. folder.
This should just go to, let me see. No named blog. I'm just gonna kill the server. Let's see if it. Sometimes it throws an error. So if I refresh that, and now if I just go to posts, there we go. So sometimes you just have to restart the server. So here we go. We've got our first item, our first sprout working. We've got a link, but the link doesn't go anywhere yet. If I go to my blog, it just goes to /posts. All right. So next, let's go ahead and actually add some styling to this. So I can just say like my blog for the title. And let's go ahead and use some Bootstrap. So if we use Bootstrap CSS, get bootstrap.com. I think there's a better version out there. All right, so here's the first. So getting started, I can go ahead and add this CSS link. So if I come up here, I'm going to link that, add some Bootstrap. So if I refresh, I might have to restart. So looks a little bit prettier, a little bit better now. I might need to, I could also add this JavaScript, or I could have just used this entire starter template, but I don't think I need the JavaScript right now. But yeah. All right. So I added the Bootstrap, just like you would when you're working with vanilla JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. But I'm going to want to add custom styling as well. So if I want to add custom styling, what I'm going to need to do is create a static directory on the same level as the templates, so and the migrations. So I'm going to open up, create a new directory called static. Then inside my static, I'm going to create another directory called CSS, because this is where all my CSS styles are going to go. And then inside my CSS directory, I can either create styles.css, but I'm going to call it blog CSS. Like so. And I'm just going to add some color. So H1 tag, H2 tag. So H1, this, targeting that, as well as this tag. I'm going to make it that color. and I'm gonna give it the body some padding. So right here, you can see there isn't any padding or anything. It's just directly straight up against that. So I added some easy styling right there. But now, in order for me to load this into my post list, so I'm just gonna move that over here. At the very top of my HTML file, I'm going to need to say, hey, load the static files. So load static. And then inside of my style sheet, my link tag, I'm going to say of the static directory, load the CSS blog.css file. So I need to add load static, just as says, hey, load the static files, or essentially give access to this specific, give static to this HTML file, all the static files. And then inside of here says inside of the static directory, essentially, or all of the static files, load the CSS blog CSS file. So if I come over here and I refresh it, it gives me a little updates that. Why did it update that? It's not right. Let's see. CSS. Did it not work? Why didn't it work? Hold on a second. Let me just restart the server. All right, why didn't that work? Let's see. Files Django. So static URL, load static. We don't need that. But why did that font change? I'm gonna actually move that up top. Let me see if I delink that.
Isn't there something that you have to register in your settings file? Don't you have to list the
You shouldn't,
static file in there?
shouldn't have to. It should automatically, but I've know people have had to do that in the past. So let's just try that. Because Django 4.0 got updated, and I wonder if that's why. All right. So let's try to do that. So in our settings, usually at the very bottom, so static. So we have a static URL is static. Just making sure everything. So there we go.
Didn't you scroll by the static files directory tag?
Let's see.
I think you have to actually manually add it to the setting file.
This.
Oh, go down. There's another one no, back in the documentation, right there.
Your project will probably also have static ads that aren't tied to a particular, so it is tied to a particular app. So that's why. So if it's not tied to a particular app, you'd have to manually add it.
Oh, okay, so if you were just doing it to be applicable to the whole project. instead of
Yeah.
just that, okay.
Let's see what's going on. Static. See. Just making sure I spelled everything correctly. Just the base template.
Can you put your load static below the Bootstrap link and above the other CSS link?
No, it should be at the very top. But yeah, this should go above that. Yeah, it should go at the very top. I want to know why it's all.
Try the dev tools and we see where that cursive font's coming from, because it's got to be coming from something.
Where the hell the admin? Hold on a second. I think I might know. All right. Run server, port 8080. / posts. There we go. So what happened was I started an old project on port 8080 or 80 or 8000, and it was cached in my web browser. So I changed. It's so yeah. And now notice here that little V, because that's cached too, because I was working in Vue earlier. Yeah. On this same port. So that's cached as well. Let me see some stuff. There we go. There we go. Okay. It's working now. So what was happening before is the old CSS was cached. Yeah. That's why it wasn't showing up. So here, this is more like it. This is what I want. So we've got our CSS that are targeting the A tags. So that's what that color is. And then we're adding some padding left to that. So you can kind of see here. Padding left. Where's the box model? So you can see right there, we've got a little bit of padding 15 left right there. All right. Does anybody have any questions about adding static files? So this part does work, but I'm going to add that to the very top. That's where it should go. Just clear, restart the server, just make sure everything's still running. I'm on port 8080. That's just for mine. There we go. So if you want to add static files or CSS, create a static directory on the same level as the templates in the migrations directory. And you can technically add any, you don't necessarily have to add a CSS directory and then a blogs.css file. You can call that whatever you want, but just for best practices, I'm creating a CSS directory because I might have multiple CSS files. So static directory, CSS directory, child directory, and then the blog.css file. I add load static at the very top of my base template or my main template. And then in static, to link that style sheet, I access the static directory, followed by the CSS directory, this blog.css file. What questions do you have about that?
What is that line break SBR? What's
So
that
that immediately says after this, there's going to be a line break. So if I had another, let's see, Django converts all new lines into, so yeah, it's literally just a line break. That's what it does. It just automatically brings everything to the next line.
What do you call the pipe symbol? Like, what's that doing in there?
This part,
Yeah.
that just essentially says at the end of this, or add this tag to this value. So it's essentially, in this specific case, just says add a line break after this HTML tag. I could also do like, I think it's like capitalize and stuff like that, or titleize.
Can you chain them together?
That's a good question. I do not know.
Okay.
I think that's what it is. All right. All right. So we just added some CSS. Let's go ahead. All right. So right now, we've only gotten to building out our first URL and our first HTML template. We've added Bootstrap to our HTML template. We've also added some custom styling, some CSS styling, using our static directory CSS blog.css file. And we loaded our static files into our HTML template at the very top, load static. And then we're accessing that CSS file in the style sheet link tag by accessing the static files and then the location to that CSS file. All right. So next, let's go ahead and actually add some custom fonts to this. Google Fonts. So Google has a bunch of open source fonts that we can access, and we can link just like we do with Bootstrap, like so. We can have access to those. So let's go ahead and browse some fonts. Does anybody have any particular type of fonts they like? Serif, sans serif type fonts? Anybody?
Open Sans is fine.
Open Sans. Is that what, this one? Is
Yeah,
that what's in the tutorial?
no.
Okay, good. So Open Sans is a Google font, and you can kind of see all of the different types of Open Sans based off of their bold, italicized, so light 300, etc. So if this is something I want, I can select a specific style. I can select all the styles. So I can say like select this style. Am I able to use this one? All right. So if I go down, how does this work? Where does it show up? I don't actually want to download it. I want to link it. Where is it? I just want to look here. Hold on a second. Let's go all the way back. There
If
we
you
go.
click that
What was it?
block icon in the top right,
Oh, here it is.
yeah, it gives you all your links.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. Cool. So if this is the one I want, I added a bunch of them. So I can like select all of them. They'll give me access to this style of this font. So up here, I get a little slide out. I can actually link this directly to my inside of my head tag in my HTML, or I can import it directly into as a font family directly into CSS. Either or. I'm just going to use the link tag. So I'm going to just copy this link tag, bring it over to my HTML head, and link that in there. Why did it do that? So it has 3 different link tags. And then it kind of tells you how to use it. Inside of your CSS, you want to do, what is it? Specify a family names rule. I'll just do font family. I think it looks like I also added Roboto font family like so. So inside of my blog, I'm going to add a bunch of more CSS just to keep the so I'm going to add, this is just a bunch of other CSS, and then inside of, for the font family, I'm going to add font family, open sans, sans serif. So this goes in highest priority to least priority, or so if for whatever reason we don't have access to the internet and it's unable to access the open sans font, they'll then go ahead and go down the line and look at the sans, like a sans serif font. So I added all this other stuff because I'm going to be using this later, but I don't want to manually type it out. So if I come here and refresh it, it looks like it's changed a little bit. But that's because I'm targeting different classes. So this will change once I update the code for this. So inside of my post list down here, I'm also going to change some styling. I'm going to add some classes and all of that. So here for posts, so I added class date, published, date published, and then I just kind of changed some things around. So now if I come over here and refresh this, post detail. So here, the href hasn't been completed yet. There we go. So now it's getting a little more custom. It looks kind of similar, but I changed some stuff. But yeah. So post, I just want to make sure everything is still working. Class post. Margin bottom. Oh. All right. Yeah, it's fine for right now. All right. So added a bunch of CSS. And now, once we move on to the detail page, I'll also want to keep this up here. That's my blog up here. But there's some things that I'm going to want to change. So here, this is going to be a list of posts, but on the post detail page, it's going to have the detailed post. But the blog is going to stay the same. So if I go to like Amazon.com, what's one thing on this page that constantly stays the same as I'm like navigating around?
Nav bar and the sidebar.
Right. So if we were to equate this with like a Django project, when I visit a new URL endpoint and it displays a new template, do you think Amazon has this HTML code inside of every single one of their templates?
Nope.
Nope. Yeah, because again, we want to keep our code dry. Don't repeat yourself. So what Amazon probably does, if this were to be a Django project or a Django app, they would have something that is called a base template that it gets loaded every single time a page is loaded. And inside that base template, it has the nav bar, something like this. So we can do the same thing in inside of our Django app, because we don't want to load this head and load Bootstrap, all the Google fonts and our style sheets inside of every single template. We just want to load it inside of a base template and extend that base template to all the other templates. So inside of my template, my blog, I'm going to create what is called a base.html file. And this is going to be my base template. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy everything over just like so, except for the stuff that is probably going to change every single route I visit. So inside of my base template, I'm going to load my head tag. I'm going to load this this blog post part. I'm going to do div. I'm going to add this part to that. Page header. So inside the post list.html, what's the only code that I really want to show all the posts? That's about, I'm sorry.
19 through 27.
So yeah, this is the code that I really only want to stay inside of this file. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm not necessarily going to delete all of it, but I'm just going to delete all that for now. Like so. And then inside my base template, the only stuff I want to show up. So I want my blog to show up on every single page, but down here, this is going to change based off of a route. So inside of here, I'm going to create what is called block content. And then down here, end block. So what's going to happen is when I load this template, it's going to read down here and then it's going to insert another template in between this block content. And you can call this whatever block, whatever, but just know generally best practice, just call it block content or block posts. I can call it all posts, something like that, but I'm just going to keep it simple, block content. And now inside of my post list, when I render this template in my views, when it comes over here to views, the HTML post underscore list.html, what I want to do, I want to first load the base template. So I'm going to say extends blog/base.html. So it's going to first grab the base HTML, then it's going to insert all this code inside of the base template where it says block content. And then it's gonna continue on with the base template after it reaches the end block. So let's actually see if this works. So if I refresh that, there we go. So everything still like shows up. Everything still seems to be working properly. So that's good. So when I render that post list, that HTML, it comes into the post list, it renders the post list.html template. It grabs the base HTML, loads everything here, loads static, all that, provides that my blog link tag with a route to the post list. That's that page header class that's making it red and big. And then once it gets down to here, it says load the post underscore list HTML template. So then it comes over here inside of this block content, load that. Then once it hits the end block, comes over here, hits the end block, then it says load the remaining code. So if I wanted to have a footer down here, this is the footer. I look over there, I refresh it. The footer shows up down here. What questions do you have about that?
If you wanted to customize the title of the page, yeah, for the base, each based on this post
Oh.
list, could you do like a different block and name it something different within
Yes.
the post list HTML?
Yep. So I think you can do so. See if this works. Block. I'm not quite. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. Block title. Whoop. Block title. And then something like that. Still doesn't work. Let's see. I don't know if that works. Yeah, there we go. But if I were to visit like another page, it won't work right now, but yeah, you can. So this kind of works.
Nice.
So that block, whatever block title, it comes over here, looks for a block title. So that's where that naming should equal one another. That's why I do block content. So you can have multiple blocks on a single page. But yeah, good question. What other questions do you have? Oh. So that's how you can extend. And then every new HTML template, we're going to, again, load the base template into. All right. So we've only gotten, let's go down here. So we've gotten the one pattern. Let's go ahead and create the post ID. So I'm going to go ahead and create int post ID. And then I'm going to create a post detail page or view. So there we go. So I get an error down there. It says blog views has no attribute post detail because I haven't created that post detail yet. So now I can do post detail, takes in the request, as well as the post ID. That post ID, again, is coming from that URL. And I can do post equals post.objects.get. I can use a primary key or ID equals post underscore ID. And I can render the request blog.post detail.html. And then I can either do the data like I did up here, which I like. Oh, dogs are downstairs. Post. And register the data. All right, so I created that post detail. Now I can go ahead and create a post detail HTML template. So over here, post underscore detail .html. And just like I did in my post list, I can extend the post or extend the base HTML template. I could update the block, but I don't necessarily need to. And I'm just going to copy some code over here. I need to do inside of the block contents. Oh, not one word. And block. So inside of that base, again, once it gets down to the block content, I'm going to want to display the post detail information. So right here, I'm going to change that, change that. All right. So I've got, so right here it's saying, hey, if it does have a date published, display the date published. So because in my models, it says blank is null or blank is true and null is true. So if I could technically create one that doesn't have a published date. So I'm doing some conditional logic here. If the date is published, display some information on it. All right. So now if I go to post, so right here, I'm clicking on that. I need to update that URL right here. So let's do it. We can do a named route. So URL post detail. And then I can say like post underscore ID equals post.id. Now, if I go back here and refresh it, there we go. We have this post. So this is my first post. I also have a delete post. I don't have the edit yet. Oh yeah, I do. Why doesn't it show up? Let's see, default button, class badge. So it looks like I'm using an older version of Bootstrap. So I can create like a badge. Content, customize components. So here, secondary. So that's what I was doing right there, class. That's not working.
They had BG secondary rather than badge secondary.
I have that right there. Badge, BG, secondary.
Did you
Like
put
so?
container class around
No.
in your base HTML? Did you put a container class?
A container class in my base HTML.
Yeah, I think you have to wrap it all in a div that has the class container.
What do you mean by that?
Like page header, you can add container to that.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah. No, that shouldn't matter. That shouldn't matter. That's just for like the page layout. Yeah.
I was saying the actual second class that your ad says badge dash secondary, but it's BG slash.
Oh, there we go. Let's see if that's it. Good call. Yep. So yeah, I've got this little edit button. It's a badge. I just grab assets from Bootstrap, All right. So we went ahead and created a post detail. Now let's go ahead and create a new post. So let's go ahead and let's first go ahead and create, where the hell did I go? My base. Try to bring over some code. See if this works. All right, yeah. So I added some, so that's that content create container. So that's just adds it, makes it a little more visually appealing on the screen. Add some margin padding. So this column 8, that means how wide it is. It's in a row. Yeah. So the only thing I added up here was added some CSS and added this a new button right here. So when I click that, I want it to eventually go to new, but I haven't created that URL yet. So let's go ahead and create that URL. So I'm going to create path to /new. That's going to go to views, just new post. And that's going to create a new post. All right. Let's see, I'm just looking. Cool. All right. So we created this new post route, add a comma there, just typically. So now in my views, I'm going to def new post, takes in the request. Now I can say like, hey, if the request if request dot method equals a post request. This is where I want to actually create a form for this. So from Saturday, how do we go ahead and create a Django form? I know we were able to create one in HTML, but Django provides a much easier way to create forms. Does anyone remember how? Not, that's okay.
Django has a form class, right?
Yep. So exactly, we're going to use a Django form class, specifically a model form. So again, how to create forms, forms in Django. Let's just see if it shows up. All right. So get and post, Django's role, blah, blah, blah. So that's that form class that we're talking about. So this is one way we can build a form just using raw HTML. But we can also create a form like so. So each form has like a input. So a char field, label your name, max length to 100. Here, this is kind of what we're going to be building out. Something like that. Let's see. Form. Do I have a model form? So we also have a model form class, which builds a form based off of one of your database models. So here, what we're going to do is create a new file and the same level as views and create forms.py. And we're going to, from Django, import forms, from models, import post. Then we're going to create a class called post form, because this is a form associated with a post. Models dot, I'm sorry, forms dot model form. We're creating a model form. Then this has a subclass of meta. And this meta class takes in a couple of attributes. The model that we're associating with. So we're going to create this post form using from the post class or post model. And then we're going to say, hey, what fields do we want the user to fill out in HTML from that post form? So if we look at the models, we can say we could have them pick out the author. Let's just do everything. Why not? Or actually, yeah, we'll just do the fields we want. Let's actually do author, title, text. Let's see, why is that? Fields, title. Let's just see what that looks like. Yeah. All right. So that's our form. So let's go back to our views. So now we can say, hey, create a instance of the form. So post form, we pass in the request dot post, all that what all the data that's from that post. So it looks like we're gonna have to import. So from forms, import post form. So the form, we have to check if it's valid. So we can say if form, so this is an instance of a form. If form dot is valid. And what that does is check against the models. Hey, just see if the char field, the text field, all that is valid for that form. Let's actually just go ahead and, well, I guess we can't. Well, I guess before we do that, if it's not a post request, let's fill out the get request first. We're going to just create an empty instance of the form. We're not going to pass anything in yet. And we're going to return render the request, the blog / post form.html template. And the data that we're going to pass in is the form, like so. And I guess we can also pass in a type of request. And this is going to be a new form or a new post. So now inside of our, we're going to create a post underscore form.html. And just like we did with the post detail, we're going to extend. And then we're going to extend the base. And then we're going to add that form in between H2. We're going to say like, this is going to type of request, new post. Then we're going to create a form. This is going to be a method equals post class equals post form button, save. type submit button. Class equals save button primary. Why not? All right. And then in this form, what else do we need for what do we need to attach to a form in Django?
CSRF token.
Yep, the CSRF token. So we're just gonna CSRF token. And then in here, in order to render that form, so in this view, we're typing in that form. We're passing in that form as like a form instance, like an object, because we created a new instance of that form. So we can just say like form.as p, and that should just automatically render a form that's already like pre-filled out with all the required fields. So if they come over here, and instead of going post, if we go to /new, here we go. Looks like I've got something that's hidden somewhere. There we go. So now we can actually create a new post like so. So it's going in here, it's going to /new. So URLs /post/new, new post comes into here. It's a GET request. So it's not a post request, so it's jumping down straight down here. So if it's a GET request, creates a new form instance, then it returns and renders the post form, and it passes in this form instance and just the type of request. And we're saying it's a new post. So type of new post. All right. So now when we fill it out, this is my second post. And I click save. I'm not going to click it yet, but when I click save, it does a post request to that same URL. So to /new. So comes over here, /new post. If the post request is a new post, let's actually just print the form, see what that looks like. So when I click save, I'm going to get an error because it didn't return HTTP response. But you can see here's that form. This is what it looks like. Author. So it's a required option value 1. I selected TA Preet. Title. This is my second post. Text. It's a text area. And this is the content of that. That's the value of that. So I can check the form. If it's valid, means I have everything that's required in that form. So if the form is valid, I can do post form.save. But typically, so I could get rid of that author because in theory, maybe, you know, if I'm doing a blog, I don't want to select the user. I just want the user to know, or when I'm like creating on Facebook, I can't select like, oh, Tom's going to post that to Facebook, or Tom's going to post that to Twitter, or Stephanie's going to post that, or Devin's going to post that. Like it knows it's me. So I'm not going to include the author on that. So I'm just going to include the title and text. And I'm just going to search through inside the form. What I'm going to do, I'm going to attach my user to this post by, instead of post form.save, I'm not going to actually officially save it. Commit false is, I'm just going to, hey, form.save, but I can't save it yet because I don't have a user associated with that post. So what I'm going to have to do is post.author. So I've got this post instance now. but it doesn't have an author attached to it, and it doesn't have a date and time attached to it. So I'm going to say, hey, author equals user.objects.first, which grabs the first user in the database, which is just me. Or not user, post. Or I guess it would be import the auth user. So from Django contrib auth models, import the default user model. So I'm grabbing the first user in the database. Then I'm also going to add post.publish date. And that's going to equal date time dot date time dot now. And I'm going to just import the date time model or package. So I only have the title and the whatever the main body, but I don't have, again, I don't have the author attached to this when I save this, and I don't have the published date. So I'm going to have to manually add that to that post object inside of my new post. And now I added those to it. Now I should be able to save it. Post.save saves it to the database. Then I'm going to return to return. I'm going to redirect to the post detail page, where I'm going to pass in the post ID equals the new post that I just created's ID. So I'm also going to have to import the redirect from the shortcut. So if everything worked correctly, if I refresh that, this is my second post. Add a bunch of crap to it, click save. There it worked. So this is my second post. Now if I click back, I've got my first post, my second post, working. What questions do you have about forms, model forms?
In that example right there, you have that post equals form.save in the first instance up there, and you have a commit equals false, and then you add the two things in, and then you save it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of having the commit equals false up there if
So I have an instance of this post form that I'm able to add the author and the published date to.
Okay,
So
I thought the initial form equals post form created that.
So if I got rid of that, let's see. Form, that might still work. Oh, and I won't have. Does that work? If that works, I'll be surprised. So let's see if we can do that. Let's go ahead and update that link in the base template to that new. So right here, URL, new post. So if I click new, third post. Yeah. So that's, yeah. So
Okay, I
Yeah.
see that now.
So that's literally the only reason why. If I didn't need to add anything to it, I could literally just bypass these three, or essentially just do post.save like so. And then it would save to the database automatically. Yeah. All right. All right. So let's quickly finish this. So we've got the new post. Now let's go ahead and quickly do the edit. So if we wanted to edit a post, so let's go to our URLs, and instead of a new post, going to the post detail. Let's do /edit. Well, not right there. /edit, edit, post, edit. Whoop. And we're gonna have to create the delete. Delete post. Just gonna comment that out for right now. So let's go ahead and do edit. So we created that edit post. Now, for this part, it's almost identical to the new post. The only thing we're changing is edit post. What we're passing in is the post ID. And what we need to do is grab the post that we're trying to edit from the database. So post equals post.objects.get ID equals post underscore ID. So we grab that post from the database. And now, instead of editing or creating a new post, we want to edit a post, but we're still using the post form because we're going to need that anyway. And then in here on line 46, when we created a new post, we had an empty form. So nothing was filled out, but we already have an existing post. And we wanted to pre-fill it with that post. So we're going to say, hey, the instance we're going to pass in is this already existing post. So let me go to post detail, update that link. So URL post detail edit post and post ID equals post.id. So now if we visit this edit, it's already pre-filled out for us. And that's what's down here. We're passing in a post instance, which we're grabbing at the very top. We're searching the database from that post ID, which is coming from right here. Now, everything's pretty much the same. The only difference is the additional thing we're passing in to this from the post request is also the instance of the existing post. Because some things, what if we only change the text, or what if we only change the title? We still want the text and title to stay the same, or anything that we didn't edit, we want to stay the same. So we can technically, let's just see if this works. No. So if I say edited and click save, this is my first post edited. And there we go. What questions do you have about the edit? We should still be able to do that. That should still work. So if I refresh this, edit it again, I shouldn't have to update the date, time, or the user. So we get rid of that. Unless we want to know what time we edited it at, then we can. So if we can say, so this was published at, but maybe I want to edit it again at 7:17. I saved it, and now that got updated. All right. And also notice how type of request, post form. So when I click new, it says new post, but if I edit it, it says edit post, because that's the type of request. So we make that post form a little dynamic for new post and edited posts. All right. And the last one, we can delete a post. So post ID / delete inside of our views, def delete post request post ID. Say post equals post.objects.get ID equals post ID post.delete post or return redirect to the post list. So if I wanted to add a new post, delete this post, post deleted, save. Now let's go to the post detail page. I need to update that link. I want it to go to URL post delete post, where the post underscore ID equals the post.id. So if I refresh that, post 4, let's go ahead and delete that post. And now it sent me back to the post list. Right. So we literally went through the entire CRUD. We added our static, we added Bootstrap to our base HTML template. We added a base template or templating to extend templates. So anything within the block content inside of our base template will render the other templates, such as the post detail, post form, and post list. We had CSS or custom CSS. We had a Google Fonts. We created model forms, so forms associated with a model. We only added the fields that we wanted to from the model to that form. We rendered that form by just using form.asp. I think there's like as t or as table. There's like a couple more attributes form as that will render as, but this renders it as a paragraph tag. That's what that stands for. All right. Any questions?